Video games are one of the hardest habits to break, especially if you don't have a process for breaking bad habits in the first place. If you don't understand how the habit formed, you're never going to be able to break it, and you're just going to keep falling back in that loop of wanting to play the game, trying to fight it off, and then you come back, and you next thing you know, you binged for hours, right? This is not sustainable, and it's not ever going to change unless you fundamentally change how you approach it, right? So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 steps that you can do to just completely change your relationship to video games and make it no longer an issue for you. Break that addiction for good. Right. If you're new here, my name's Andrew, and I just make content all about focus, productivity, and living a better life. And breaking away from the video game addiction is a huge part of living a better life. So if you're into that and you think this is helpful, and if not, that's okay. Now, right, all habits have a stage or a set of stages, rather, that they go through every single time you engage in a habit. And the more often you do it, the less noticeable it becomes, right? So first off, it goes cue, craving, response, and reward, right? Those 4 are the 100% every single time guaranteed sequence that you are going to go through when you engage in a habit, good or bad, right? And this is, by the way, just so you know, this is, if you haven't read it, Atomic Habits. This is part of James Clear's Atomic Habits book. He breaks it down brilliantly, and if you're not a reader, I recommend picking up that book to start your journey. But essentially, every single thing that you do, the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a cue, right? There's going to be something that triggers you, and it could be something super subtle in your environment, right? It can be a slight amount of stress. It can be a smell. It can be anything, right? But what comes after that cue is always a craving, right? Say you smelled cookies, dude, and you want to go eat those cookies. That's fully because you smelled it and it produced that craving, right? And based on that, right, based on your goals, right, whether you care about being in shape or not, you're going to have a response to that, and your response is either going to be, I'm going to go eat the cookie because I want to, or you're going to refrain from it because you're trying to be health conscious, right? You're trying to be on a diet, whatever. But either way, that next step is going to be your direct response to the craving that was produced by the cue. And once that happens, the final thing based on your response is the reward, right? The reward in this case is either eating the cookie to feel good in the moment, or not eating the cookie to satisfy your long-term health goals, right? Either way, there is a reward there, and that is something that you are going to keep in mind, and it's going to inform your next decision, right? So whichever one you made, right, whether you ate the cookie or didn't, next time you smell cookies baking, you're more inclined to make the same exact decision, and it's going to reinforce. That is the basic structure of how a habit works and how it forms, right? What you need to do to break a bad habit is there's 4 things that you need to implement around the habit to get it away from you and to make it something that is just so far from appealing that it's not going to be in your mind anymore. And this is how you can truly break away from video games, right? The first thing that you need to do is make it invisible, right? If you are serious about trying to just break your video game addiction, right, you don't have to make it invisible forever, but if you are seriously trying to break this addiction, if you are struggling, if you're spending hours and hours and hours a day, and it's consistent, it's routine, then you need to make it invisible. You need to take your monitor, your TV, whatever you're playing on, and put it somewhere else. Put it out of sight. Put it in your closet for a bit. Or if your TV is obviously too big for that, then just take the actual console or PC and move it, right? Just put it somewhere else, somewhere out of sight, Because when it's out of sight, it's going to be out of mind more often, right? This alone is not going to just make you break the habit, because if you're really addicted, you're just going to pull that thing back out, right? But this is the first step that you can implement, and you can do this again with any habit that you have. If you have a bad habit for anything, if it's drugs, if it's drinking, if you put it out of sight, that is the first step to just kind of weaning yourself off of that and making it harder to engage with. Right. The second thing that you need to do is make the habit unattractive. Right. So with video games in particular, you need to find a way to have an alternative that is more attractive than the video game itself. And this is a very hard task, right? This one is going to be the hardest of the four to actually try and implement into your life, because you enjoy video games, right? And they are attractive to you almost at all times. But you need to make it unattractive, and this is more of a mental fix. This is more of a mental task, I should say. Right here, right now, reinforce into your mind all the negatives that come with the video game addiction, right? You're losing out on your social life, you're worsening your social skills, you're frying your dopamine, you're making it harder to focus, and you're consuming and wasting time that could be better spent elsewhere. And you need to reinforce that into your head every single time that the word video games gets brought up. Okay? That is going to be how you make it unattractive. Every time you think of video games, you associate it with the negatives. You don't think of the fun times that you have. You don't think of the dopamine spikes on the game, right? You never think of them in that positive way again, because you know what that does to you, right? And I'm not saying that you can never go back and play video games once or twice here and there, right? But if you are addicted to video games, right, you're really trying to break this, reinforce how bad they are for your goals and for what you want to do in life every single time that you think of them. That's how you're going to make it unattractive. Okay. Now, the next step on this, right, the third of the four, is one of the easier ones to actually do. And this is going to be to make it difficult. Now, in this sense, right, for video games, you want to make it difficult to actually sit down and play. So something that you could do is take it, whether you're on PC or console, right, you can take your controller or your mouse and put it somewhere in your room, in wherever you play, right? You can take that, move it somewhere, and then you can also move the console somewhere, and you can move your headset somewhere, and you can move your games somewhere else, so that everything that you have to do is a big process of grabbing things from all over the place, and it'll just seem like more of a hassle than it is worth it to actually play. Right? You can do this again with any habit, right? If you are trying to quit smoking, you can put the cigarettes somewhere, or smoking weed, whatever it is. You can put the actual substance somewhere. You can put the lighter somewhere else. You can put the device that you use to smoke out of somewhere else, right? Like, you can make things more of a process and less appealing for you to actually go ahead and go through with it. And that's the fundamental idea behind this step, is to just make it difficult to actually access the habit so that it's less appealing in general, and that assists in making it unattractive, right? If you are mentally rehearsing how unattractive it is for you, and you're also just going through 10 steps to even do the habit, it's just not going to be worth it in your mind, and you're going to break through that, right? So a quick recap before we get into this fourth one here is to just make it invisible, right? Try and put things out of sight that you can. Make it unattractive. Mentally rehearse, go through your mind, and remind yourself why video games are something you're trying to quit and why it's a bad thing for you in your life right now. And remember to just make it difficult, right? Make it difficult to actually engage with the habit. Now, the final thing that you can do is to make it unsatisfying. And this is another very difficult one when it comes to video games in particular, right? Because these four will help you break any habit. But making it unsatisfying is hard, because The reason that you are addicted to the game is because it's hijacking your dopamine and it's satisfying you just by literally looking at it being on, like just engaging with it is satisfying. So what you truly need to do, this is also just going to be more of doubling down on making it unattractive so that when you go to play it, it is less fun than it initially was. And at the same time, another aspect of making it unsatisfying here is every time you get that cue, right? Every time you get the cue that triggers you to go and want to play video games, replace it with something else, right? Replace it with a better habit. When you get that cue, use that as a trigger to just do something else instead, right? Reform what that cue means, right? So 99% of the time you go to play video games, it's because you're bored or you just got home from a long day at work or school and you want to quote unquote unwind, even though it does not relax you at all. No video games are really relaxing like that, especially on your nervous system. But that is the reason, right? So next time you are bored, pick up a book, bro. Next time you're bored, pick up a book and start reading. Next time you're bored, go say this is the time to work out now instead. Right? Build better habits in that will become satisfying over time. And then video games will inadvertently become less satisfying because you'll start to get more joy out of reading and growing your mind and learning about in-depth concepts and learning about topics that you never even knew existed, right? You're going to get so much more joy out of that and so much more beneficial aspects brought into your life from that when you go back to video games, you're really just going to be like, this is a waste of time. Like, this is stupid. And it might be fun for like 20, 30 minutes, but it's not for me anymore, right? That is what is going to happen if you can successfully shift the focus of what that cue means for you, right? Shift what that cue causes you to do and triggers you to do, and just make the video game itself unsatisfying, right? Another thing you can do in this unsatisfying realm, the final thing that I'm going to say, and this is specific to video games, is to just literally not play the game that you are wanting to play, right? Not play the game that you are really dying to. And if you cave after going through the first couple steps, if you cave and you really, after making it difficult and putting things out of sight, if you really bring everything together to come back and play the video game, play a game that you haven't really played in a while, then there's a reason for it, right? Play a game that you're kind of bored with, that doesn't really get anything out of you, that doesn't really do anything for you. And again, just start associating that with the whole video game experience, and it'll drastically become less fun, right? If you can do all four of these things for video games in particular, but especially just bad habits that you're trying to break, you're going to have a much easier time regulating when that cue hits, right? When the cue to go play video games hits and now you have the craving, you're going to have a much easier time switching over, right? Switching gears and instead craving a book, instead craving a workout, instead craving cooking your own fresh, healthy ass meal, right? It can be whatever, right? You can set it and rewire your brain to do whatever in that time. But the more you do this, if you at first just make it invisible and difficult to get to, and then you take those mental aspects of making it unattractive and unsatisfying and you apply them, it should be a 100% breeze for you to just get through that and actually break the addiction that you have, right? That addiction will be no more if you can go through those 4 steps, right? Another thing, and the final thing that I want to touch on, is actually being able to recognize your cue, right? Because video games are something that are so addictive that you probably have multiple cues for it. it's probably not just something where you get home from work, right? That could be a cue, right? You get home and you were like, oh, you were stressed one day and you picked up the controller, you went and played video games, and then you were like, oh, that helped, that was nice, that relieved some stress, and then that became your routine, right? So that's a cue that you need to watch out for if that's for you. But you need to kind of backtrack every single time that you end up on the game. You need to backtrack, how did I get here, and what initially caused it, right? What initially caused me to want to end up here? Once you can pinpoint that, you can truly start making it unsatisfying and truly shift the cue itself, right? That's how you do it. You just have to actually be able to identify the cue and look out for it, right? If it is getting home from work and from a stressful day, and you know that, next time you are coming home from work, just remember, be aware that usually this is going to trigger you to play video games, so I'm going to actually fight that, right? Have that mentality, and you are going to make way more progress in breaking that video game habit. Okay? Sorry about that. These are fully unscripted now. They're just off the dome. So I'm just trying to help you with what exactly helped me. And this breakdown helped me a lot to break other bad habits in my life. I have already ultimately broken the video game habit, right? I will not lie to you. I play them about once a week, maybe a little less. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. I'll hop on for maybe an hour, but that's only if everything is done in my life, right? I've gotten my work done. I've gotten my business work done. I've gotten my YouTube work done, and I am all good. Everything's taken care of, and I have absolutely nothing to do, and I've already read, right? That is the time that I will allow myself to do that. And again, that's once a week, once every 2 weeks. Right. Don't play around with it, though. If you are seriously still addicted to them, do not play around with it. Go cold turkey. Genuinely, use these 4 things to help you go cold turkey. And having that last aspect of replacing what initially made you want video games with wanting something else that's good for you, is going to 100% make it easier to quit cold turkey, because you're not just getting rid of something from your life, you're adding something in that's helping you during that time, right? During the time where you normally would have been on video games, you're adding something in that is going to help you. It's going to help you grow, and you are going to be so much better off. Okay? You are going to quit the video games. You are never going to be back on them the way that you are now, right? If you just make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult to play, and make it unsatisfying when you do play it, then your video game addiction will be no more. I hope this video was valuable. Like and subscribe if it was. I love you so much for watching, and if you want to work with me, link is in the description, the first one, and I'll help you actually improve your life through productivity and focus. Okay. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and as always, stay blessed.